All right.
I always get so happy to be on the recording. I'm famous. I'm a TV star now. Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Lily, I love you in that blur. You look like you're just kind of coming out of the undefined G center.
Coming out of the blur. Yes.
Um, so, for those of you who might be watching this, I'm Tiera St. Clair, and this is Lily Lash, Susan
Hello.
Lily Lash, if you know her on Facebook. And um, we're going to be doing our best to, I hate that phrase, I think it's very funny that I said it, to put together a handbook combining locational astrology and human design. And as far as I know, this has not been done before. So it's a whole new bringing of something into the world. And I have studied both of these things very extensively, Lily's extensively in human design. And I chose Lily because I really like talking to her and listening to her and sharing human design between us because we pull things out of each other. We both have right variable minds. So we're going to just see what happens and what comes out of us and keep going until we have something that we like. This may or may not be one of those.
Sounds good so far.
Okay. So, locational astrology, Jim Lewis in the 70s, he was an astrologer who coined the phrase astrocartography. And astrocartography is, it takes your astrological chart and puts it on a map of the world. And the premise is that in astrology, whatever is on one of the angles, the ascendant, the descendant, the IC, and the MC are highlighted in your chart. So it's that's like what the focus will be. So if you have a chart, if you have a planet on one of those angles in your natal chart, it will be highlighted in your life as a general statement. And then when you move to a different place on the planet, what happens is your chart stays the same, but it shifts so different planets become highlighted at different places. Like that.
Nice.
Okay. So what I'm going to be attempting to do with Lily is to bring human design into that locational astrology equation by bringing in the keynotes that Ra has added to the planets, because he sees the planets somewhat differently than just traditional astrology. And then also bringing in the gates. And I don't know if we'll go so far as bringing in the lines. I think that can be extrapolated out by people individually. So that, for example, if I find my personality sun is a certain place, like for me, my personality sun is descending in California. Now, my personality sun happens to be in the gate 44. So the flavor of my sun will be different than, let's say, for example, if Lily was under her sun, it's a gate 8. So we're going to be expanding and deepening and bringing breadth to the ideas of astrocartography by bringing human design in there. And of course, it probably doesn't, but always should be said that strategy and authority trumps everything. So this is not something for your minds to latch onto and decide, okay, I need to move to Madrid because my sun line is there and la 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 la. You have to see, do you feel invited? If you, like Lily, are a projector, do you have a response? If you, like I am, a generator, et cetera, et cetera. So this definitely is not something that I'm offering that will come before strategy and authority, but can give you something especially if you are like either of us, who are emotional, that may give something to ponder or to feel into as you're on your way to making a decision. And yeah, we're going to see what comes out of us, because I think a lot will come out that we have neither one of us thought about yet. And I have all these notes I've taken, and now I'm looking at them. Okay, here we go. Here I'm reading myself now. And let's be clear, this is a monopole game. The magnetic monopole is the driver and leads us upon our differentiated trajectory in this life. It is the design crystal and the monopole who create the body. The personality crystal is a latecomer to the game. So when you're in when a little body is created inside its mommy, what comes in to the womb, I guess, is the design crystal connected to the magnetic monopole, and together they actually create the body. The personality isn't even there for the first 6 months. And when the little baby is born, the personality crystal hovers up on top of the head, kind of like that, like you can't even, it's not even part of the body. And the design crystal goes into the ajna, which if the ajna is the pituitary, and if you were to go straight through like the middle of your forehead where you think of your third eye, and then intersect it here, right kind of down there in the middle of your head is your pituitary. The pineal is up here connected to the personality crystal. And then the sternum is where the monopole resides. And that's what we also think of as the area of the G center. And again, I think it's a really curious thing. I have a defined G. Lily has an open G center, undefined G center. And what would the difference be? You know, if I'm somewhere that my design leads me with my divined G, how am I going to experience that place maybe differently than Lily with her open G? Will I feel more solid there? Will she feel more uncertain? I have no idea. So I want us to be, bringing those things out of each other, because both of us have traveled quite a lot. And so we have some data that we can pull on as examples. So the monopole holds you together in the illusion of separateness and moves you along your line of trajectory. That's what the driver does. And that's what this life is all about. So what the monopole is doing, it's holding these two elements together, and it does it through what's known as the attraction frequency. It holds these elements together and it creates this illusion that it is us, and it moves us along our line of geometry. It's the monopole that structures existence. That's a pretty big thing. I'm going to be calling this handbook "Where You Are Is Who You Are." I heard Ra say that. I listen to Ra all the time, and I heard him say that a bunch of years ago, and my whole body went like that. Like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean where I am is who I am? Am I who I am because of where I am? And it really struck me. It struck me quite deeply, and I have walked that phrase around a lot since that moment, and have come to see that yes, indeed, where I am is who I am. From the mundane idea of, I dress differently in different places. I have a different flavor of how I move through the world if I'm in Florida walking along the beach versus if I'm in New York making my way through the city. If I'm in Paris, if I'm in London, and all these different places, I am a different person because I'm a different flavor of me there. But also I'm activating different gates in my design and different planetary influences. And so it's a very mysterious thing. I guess there's that catchphrase, wherever you go, there you are. But indeed, you can meet different aspects of yourself. And some places are a lot more fun than others, and some places are a lot more challenging than others. One of the things that people often say when they hear about astrocartography or locational astrology is, where should I go? Where's the best place for me? And it's actually a ridiculous question. Very sorry, because you probably already thought that out there in TV land. That answer doesn't apply, because what really you could ask is, if I go here, what will be influencing me? If we think about the planets as gods, which, they're named after gods, so we might as well, then when a planet is influencing you in a certain place, it could be said that you are, it's a necessity for you to worship at the altar of that God in order that you can be aligned with what's being asked of you by that energy. I don't know if I like that much, but I like it better than some kind of fatalistic, oh, it's good for you here and it's bad for you there. I tend to like intensity. And so going to, Pluto or Uranus lines for me is fun. I get kind of bored with the humdrum and the mundane. But other people might get really freaked out at having to confront, the depth of their truth, or sudden changes happening, which are the keynotes for those two things. Okay, that's good. I like all of that so far. Do you have anything to say, Lily?
Well, I don't know astrocartography, just I'm familiar with it through you. But I find it very interesting, and I really like the bringing in human design to it. I can see the interesting potential that it has, and because ultimately it will be, whatever type you are, whatever your strategy is, as far as like an invitation for me. And then I could kind of go into it from that angle, and that way my mind's not making those decisions about, because when you said something about your son in California is on the descendants, right? I'm not sure what that means, and
Cool.
my mom wanted to grab it and say, is that good? Is that bad? Is that whatever? And I went, that's not where you're going. So, yeah, maybe you could explain that for me.
Yeah, this is exactly why I want to do this with you, Lily, because you have segued me right into the next thing. It's perfect.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
So in the ascendant, the descendant, the IC and the MC don't really show up. The houses don't really show up in human design like they do in astrology. There's 12 houses in astrology, and I'm gonna wonder. Might add a little chart to this later. So, if you've never seen a horoscope, it looks like a round circle, and it's divided into 12.
Mm-hmm.
And on the left-hand side is what's called the ascendant. Now, why it's called the ascendant is if you were looking at the horizon as this baby was being born, whatever you would see would be coming up on the ascendant is what would be there in the astrological chart. So if the sun was rising, the sun would be there. If Pluto was rising, Pluto would be there, et cetera, et cetera. The ascendant is the face you show the world. Let me look at my notes, because I did make some notes about that, and I might not remember everything. I was astrologer for a long time, but I haven't been thinking about it for a long time also. So the ascendant, the ascendant is your personal expression. This is how people see you. This is, some people call it the mask that you wear, that people, it's personal. It's how people see, and they think they know you because of what they see, like on your face. A lot of times, astrologers fancy that they can tell what someone ascendant is because of how they look. You know, you can just see a quality of someone in the facial expressions and the body type of what that ascendant is. Now the descendant, okay, so if the ascendant is on the left, then on the right of that astrological chart, or the seventh house, is called the descendant. And that's how you interact with others. This is your external influence. So here's self, here's other. This is relationship. Traditionally in astrology, that seventh house would be called the house of marriage, the house of relationship, the house of relating. So it's like, here you are interacting with the world. And then the IC is down at the very bottom of the chart. So when you were born, if you took a little periscope and you went all the way through the earth to whatever is on the other side of the earth, that would be what's going on there, is the IC. And mostly astrologers look at the IC as your roots, as your family, as how you connect with the world from that base center. Some people think of it as your true self. There's one astrologer who actually switches the MC and IC and thinks of this as where your career is. But what most astrologers think is when you get up to the 10th house, so we're in the 4th house with the roots and the IC, and then the MC is what's straight above. So at noon, it'd be the sun up there, well, depending on the time of year. And that tends to be most traditionally your vocation, how you see yourself in the world, your self-perception.
The IC?
The MC.
Oh,
IC is at the bottom.
what does IC stand for?
Oh, it's like something like immuni coeli. I think they're Latin words, and the MC is medi coeli, something like that.
Cool.
It's midheaven is another word for MC.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like your roots, your vocation, yourself, and your descendant. Now, quite honestly, and I've been looking at astrocartography. I first got an astrocartography chart, I think, when I was a teenager. So I've been looking at this a long time. We won't say how many years ago that was. 5 years ago. Thanks, Lily. I have not, in my experience, noticed a great deal of difference if I have something on the MC versus the descendant versus the IC versus the ascendant. And I have noticed a lot of difference with what planet is where. That doesn't mean that's not other people's experience. There are some astrologers who go very deeply into astrocartography. Moses Sirigar is someone that I've taken classes with, and he just goes into all the details, and he's very, very, very skilled. And I would actually recommend him if someone wants to really go deeply into more than we're going to cover here with understanding astrocartography. And, you know, there's Perrin lines, and there's local space lines, and there's horizon line. There's a lot more than we're gonna go through. We're gonna just do some basics here. So if you did want more, I highly recommend Moses Sirigar, and Aaron Sullivan is another one. A couple astrologers I like. So yeah, in general, you can say if it's on the IC, it's going to be about your roots, about your home, about your family. That's going to be the focus. If it's on the MC, it's going to be career. And career in astrology is seen differently than your job. You know, so you could have a job as a house painter, but you could have a vocation as an artist, for example. And you might see the house painter in the 6th house, which is called your job, your work, your everyday life. And you might see that artistic tendency up on the top of the chart in the midheaven or in the 10th house, which we're going to use the word vocation instead of career, hopefully, if I can remember that every time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything you want to say about any of that?
Um, with the IC and the MC, like, are those like the polarities, or like you find yourself in the middle from your roots to midheaven?
They would be opposite each other. The ascendant and descendant are going to be opposite,
Yeah.
and the IC and the MC are going to be opposite. So it'd be the opposite sign at the same degree.
So it just, you find yourself right always in between,
Yeah,
basically.
you're kind of, it's like in human design, we have a cross as well. We have the nodes, which form the horizontal, the stage upon which we're playing the game, and you have the sun, earth, which is who you are on that stage.
So it just reflects that the duality, of the world, like an inner and outer authority and so forth. So I could kind of see now on the horizon, those marrying, how they really are similar, or they kind of speak that same language of duality, and where
Yeah,
the
yeah,
individual is at in the center, if I got that correctly.
yeah,
This is good to me, and this is really cool. So
yeah. Now, there's something I'm going to touch on, and I don't know how much I'll go into it because there's just so much to do here. But there are these things called Perrin lines. Now, you've seen an astrocartography chart, right, Lily? We've looked at them. It's just basically a map of the world with all these lines all over the place. And most people who look at them, and they go, what the fuck? How do I know anything about this? And, it'll, if you look with a little bit of a detailed eye, you can see that this line is connected to this planet. So here's Saturn doing this, and here's Mars doing that, and blah, 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 blah. Now, there are also these things called parens or paran. I'm not actually 100% sure about how to pronounce that. What that is when you're looking at the chart and you see one line intersecting with another line, okay? So here's Pluto and here's Saturn, and they intersect. What you can do is you take that point right at that intersection point, and if you took a ruler and you went like this on the map, then the intersection point is here, and you go horizontal with a ruler, that whole line across the map is going to have that flavor of that intersection. So it's actually quite important, but we're not going to go into a lot of that. In a reading, it might be something that we would talk about. Because, you could see, well, this is great. Go here because, you want more such and such in your life, and it has this planet over there. But then you look over here and you go, oh, but this actually is going to also be flavored secondarily with these two planets, and they might not be as nice for you.
okay.
Now, the other thing that I am going to be bringing in, mostly because I'm absolutely fascinated with it right now, and I just keep going deeper and deeper into my awareness of this, is design resonant mapping and personality resonance mapping, which investigates lunar and planetary color. As if there wasn't enough, I have to bring in this because, quite honestly, when I discovered lunar and planetary color, it answered a lot of questions that I had in design. For example, I have a number of people who have the motivation called hope in my life, and I like them, and I feel uplifted a lot of times around those people. I'm like, why? What's my deal? I mean, yeah, hope is nice, okay? Hope is nice. It's all right. Hope is lovely. But not everyone, digs hope as much as I do. And then finally, I realized that hope is the motivation. It's the personality motivation number 2 is called hope. I don't have that. But what I do have is the design PHS in a 2. And so what happens every time I get around someone who has the same color that I do in my PHS, my body feels supported. My body feels connected to itself. In this case, my body feels hopeful, and my body likes feeling hopeful. Now, Lily has the PHS in number 5. What is it called? I just lost a word, Lily.
I have to come back.
I know, it's like, sometimes I forget words.
Are you talking about my PHS?
I'm talking about your PHS.
The low
It's called
light?
feeling. It's called feeling, isn't it? Feeling. Okay.
Feeling. Yes, it's feeling. I have lots of feelings.
And
Okay.
it's kind of vibe feeling, right? That whole all 5s have that whole connection with frequency and vibration and whatnot. And so when Lily meets someone who has a 5 on the personality side, which is called guilt, she might feel that resonance and that support in her body. And it's very visceral. It can also be personality with personality and design with design. It can be someone's Pluto in the color 5. My design is in the color 5, by the way. My design moon is in the color 5. So what drives my body could be supportive to your body, which I guess we could sort of see, can't we? And you support what drives me. So that's just something that will probably pop out of my mouth. And some of you out there in TV land, like saying that, may not have any idea about what I'm talking about, but that's okay. You don't have to. You might later. And then there's one more thing about this, okay? So in personality resonance mapping, Ra talks about mutation. And we are all designed with the possibility of mutating into really the differentiated person that we are here to be. And living our strategy and authority turns that possibility into a probability that we can actually live a differentiated life. I said probability because that's Lily's view, and I knew she'd like it. And she smiled, so I like that. So what this means is that once you live your strategy and authority, you have the opportunity to become more than a piece of furniture in somebody else's movie. You can actually be the star of your own movie. And what happens when that takes place is that the planets who become highlighted in your experience shift. So when we're living our mundane lives, the planets that have the focus are Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, and Neptune. So you can look at those gates and you can see that those are what most people are living out. Those are the mundane gates or planets. And when we shift into our differentiated self and mutate into actually someone who we're here to be, those planets wane in importance, and the ones that come into focus, into actualization, are Uranus and Pluto and Saturn and Mars and the Moon. And it's all driven by the Mars, because the Mars is the mutative planet. It's the one that has to do with heat. It's the one that goes from actually being an immature part of us, which is what it is when we're the mundane self, to becoming a mutated being. And we start living a whole different experience of life. again, this may not be making any sense to you, but I have to go there because it's what I'm fascinated with right now. And some of you might love this, I hope. So one of the things that can happen when you move from being focused in the mundane, humdrum, mediocre life that most people are living into being really living as yourself and fulfilling your purpose, which you see in your incarnation cross, is that people that you've been attracted to because they activated your Mercury, Venus, Neptune, and Jupiter could wane in significance in your life, and people could come into your life who activate your more mutative potential. And so if you're seeing, as you go through your differentiation process and your deconditioning process, that some people are falling away and other people are coming in strong, that's part of what it is. There's a mechanic to that as well. How'd I do with that? Was that,
That was really good.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. Makes me wonder maybe to have an example, like say your example of your immature self, whatever that gate is. Then of course, if you wanted to take it further with the line, but to see over time how that's matured. I mean, it just gives the opportunity to really look back and go, who has kind of faded out of my life?
Yes. Yes.
And where have I really, really struggled with unawareness, immaturity, and how far have I come within that immaturity? Because that's mutation, right?
Yes.
Mutation.
Yes.
And to actually have a list in front of me of those mutative planets.
Yeah.
See what they are. So it makes me want to look at that. And then I'm just going to leave it up to you how you marry it with astrocartography.
I know. And actually that's something that I'm going to call on both of us, Lily, to take a look at. Like, okay, that's a mutated planet that you have over there in Madrid and mine's over there in Marseille, whatever it is, and just start, seeing if we can extrapolate. Like, so how I'm going to work with this is I'm going to bring a theory in, and then we're going to see if we have any examples to show that theory. And I like that you just asked me for that. My Mars is in the 63rd gate. And 63 is up there in the head. It's the only thing I have in an open head center. And it's the gate of doubt. And I am definitely full of doubt. And I think in kind of a good way. I was a very new agey person for a long time. And what brought me to the new agey business was because I doubted that what I grew up with was valid. Luckily, I was not indoctrinated with a lot of religion, so I didn't have to deal with that. But just, the way that people told me the world worked and what you're supposed to do with your life, it's like, I doubt that that's the right way, And then when I got into all this new agey stuff, it's like it was supposed to have all these answers. And so I would go into this, I went into astrology and the tarot and Myers-Briggs and Enneagram and raw food and organic food and, all the things you can think of. I was searching for something that would give me the answer. And after a while, they all broke down until I met human design. So far, it has not broken down. I think I'm 13 years in now. And so that doubt has actually been what has led me on my path. And I could even say led me to human design. Because if I had just decided that astrology had all the answers, or the tarot, or psychology, or religion, or any of those things, I might have just stayed there. But I doubted it because it wasn't practical and it didn't give me what I was looking for, which I have come to see is actually the mechanics of how everything works. So I can understand what's going on and work with it. So I can see that doubt was really immature because I just was kind of like, well, fuck this and fuck that, and annoyed and kind of disappointed that things weren't working. But the doubt kept leading me, and it's become, I would say, discernment. And discernment is maybe, I don't know, I never had this thought before, but maybe discernment is a more mature level of doubt, because doubt can be just kind of willy-nilly, but discernment has to really take a look and see what does work, what doesn't work. So I would say that my Mars definitely has matured and led me along the path to differentiation. That's good.
Excellent. Yes.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, all of you out there in TV land might want to look at your personality Mars and see about your own process of differentiation. I've been nursing a guinea pig back to health who has been really, really sick, and now I'm going to let you meet him. This is Kaba. Hi. Whoop. He's so cute. That's how big he is. He's littler than when I first got here because he's been really sick. But I love him. Sometimes he just lives right here inside my shirt. Just like all day. I just like let him live on my body. I did that with my daughter too. I guess I'm a little kangaroo kind of girl. Okay, that was a little sidetrack. Do you have anything you want to say, Lily?
Well, with your Mars and how I think you explained it well. And so when you see in the world where your Mars is in astrocartography, let's just say you're curious because you've been invited and you responded to go to Bulgaria or someplace like that. And that your Mars is going right through the city that you're going to. What would that tell you? Is that too advanced of a question to where?
No, that's the actual question that I want us to be looking at. That's the perfect question. And partly what that question speaks to, Lily, I love this. I knew you were the right person for this with me. It's just perfect. Is that, like, for example, in astrology, what often you'll read if you look at a Mars line is you become really aggressive here. Don't go here if you want your relationships to thrive and flourish, right? Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, if what's really going on there is you're mutating into being who you are, then you will get the correct relationships. Like if you're just your mundane self, you're probably making most of your decisions with your mind, which is meaning you're probably in transference with all the decisions. So yeah, you likely won't get good relationships because you're fucked up. But you can see that if I'm just out there doubting everything and kind of, aggressive with putting people down who believe all the nonsense that I think everything is, for example, yeah, that might not make for good relationships with me, for me. But if I'm out there with an eye to discernment to see, what is doubtful and what really has some validity, that could open things up for me in a whole different way. I was looking at this just the other day because I have Mars. I have Mars going through a swath of Europe, and Vienna and Prague are both in that swath. And I'm not remembering if it was personality or design at this moment. Oh, that's the other thing, is that there's your locational chart for your personality, and then there's another one for your design. And I was trying to remember, like, did I have something that was, well, in both Prague and in Vienna, I stayed with friends, Facebook friends, actually. And the one in Prague was a basically really cool woman, kind of independent by nature. And we went out and had coffee a couple times together, but mostly she did her thing and I did my thing, and it felt good. I wasn't like trying to, hang out with her all the time, and she wasn't wanting me to hang out with her all the time. I think that the woman I stayed with in Vienna, on the other hand, thought we would have more time together. And when I'm going, especially to a place I haven't been, I want to see that place. I'm not going to just go see a friend and have coffee and then go back to the house. I want to walk around and see the museums and see the art and see the people and see the buildings and all of that. And I think her feelings were hurt a little bit because I had a very independent, I have to go there. So maybe that would be a flavor of Mars that did impact a relationship in the one that didn't feel as good, but in the other did feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it normal, not normal, common to have more than one mutated planet in like one city or one area?
Well, there is no normal in this, as you realized as soon as you said it. What if you're looking at, you know how in design, like sometimes you have a red and a black line, and sometimes you have two different planets in the same gate. Like I have the gate 53 times. Okay. All of those planets are going to be in the same place, right? In the astrological chart, you can see them as conjunctions. I have a whole conjunction-y business in my astrological chart. The sun, the moon and Mercury and Neptune, moon, Mercury, Neptune are all really close together. And the sun is not very far away. They're all in Scorpio in the 5th house. So wherever I have one of those, the others are going to follow. Also, if you had something opposite, they would both be influencing that place. So if you have Saturn opposite your sun, wherever you go to your sun line, you're going to have Saturn there. Now, if you don't get along real well with Saturn, you're not going to want to go to your sun line, even though sun is supposed to be really shiny and great and delicious. So that's the other thing about looking at your chart, is seeing what influences there are. You know, I have a friend who almost everywhere she's ever gone, she has Saturn. It's just, that's what life has provided. I don't think I've hardly ever been on a Saturn line. You know, I'm not drawn to that energy. She is. It's you know, there's some mysteries there as well. Like what are we attracted to, and what does that bring out in us?
So like that example, maybe she's in her chart, she's built for the Saturn influence.
Yes, she is.
Oh,
in fact, I think Saturn squares her sun, so it's always connected somehow to her. She has a strongly Saturnian chart, which you wouldn't actually know her. She's very kind of happy-go-lucky and happy all the time. You think of Saturn as more dour and serious, but she has that influence a lot in her life. Whereas I'm more attracted to Uranus, and I have Uranus square my sun. So that energy feels more normal to me, more nourishing even. Yeah. I actually just realized I have some notes I took about the IC and the MC and all those things. Shall I read them?
yeah.
The ascendant is the energy outgoing into your personality and personal expression. The person's personality takes on the planetary energy close to the ascendant and acts like a lens. One is identified with the accompanying planetary energy on the ascendant. So again, if you're at a Saturn line, you will be identified as you are Saturnian. This is our outreach, what you drive toward and what you want and how you are received. The descendant, on the opposite, the forces of any planet around the descendant will be experienced primarily as other, or who is reflected back to you. The influence is external and will be focused in relating with others. Situations that happen will draw the individual into learning new responses that will ultimately help the person assimilate the qualities of that planet. In psychological terms, we could call this projection, one that the person may not know much about before the experience, but will afterward. So if you have Saturn descending, it could be that the people around you will seem Saturnian, right? This is where you are sensitive and where you project things outward to become conscious of them. Then and a lot of these I'm taking from a book by Erin Sullivan, who's another astrologer. I think I mentioned her before, and I like her as well. So the IC is often thought of as your home and its responsiveness to what goes on there, as if the people are your family or your tribe. The planet will influence this, and again, we're going to look at the gates that these planets may be in. Do you feel at home here? You might buried memories may get activated in this place. Ancestry, family, history, mother and father archetypes, all of these things could arise as part of what you develop or go through when you're on the IC. And then the midheaven, or the MC, it says Lewis considered this to be the prime angle, which had to do where we perceive ourselves and the image we present to the world. The image is not the persona, but the image. Like you are the CEO would be an image, or the movie star, or the bum, or whatever that is. This area can be profession or vocation, and whatever planet is close to that will be the flavor that you would probably find in your career and your vocation. It's how you're seen in the public eye, like the ascendant would be how your friends know you. This would be how the public sees you. Your aspirations. This is how you might attract attention to you. Those are my notes that I took on that.
So I could see how that goes along with human design, and if you know what gate, or even your profile.
Yes. Yes.
Because I think of your example when you were in Vienna, I believe it was, with a woman who projected to you that you were going to spend more time, but just hanging with her, but you wanted to see things. And
I was happy if she wanted to do that with me, by the way. But she's like, really? We have to walk this much? Which I think most people would say, right?
Right.
To me.
It's interesting to see where her planet is and how she projected onto. I mean, you go so many places with this. I could see where it's hard to start. Yeah. But I like the idea, for me anyway, of learning the planets through human design as far as what they represent, like the immaturity or your values or laws and so forth. And then where they're at in your astrocartography, and then what gate is there. It's just like, we could go a long ways with that.
Yeah, I know. You're going to start to see how much we could go into. So I think maybe that's good for one session, where it's like an hour. Maybe each one of these can be an hour or so. It might be more than that. I could actually keep going. But the next thing I think that that we'll do is look at each of the planets and look at the keynotes, and we'll look at some of the ones, the traditional astrological keynotes for the planets, and then bring also in what Ra has added to that and expanded and deepened with those keynotes. And I guess we should probably do that as a separate thing, because that could be a whole thing.
Yeah, I agree. Because that is like a foundational.
Yeah. Aw, he just relaxed, a little puppy. Little pup.
Wonder where his planets are.
I know, right? Aw, little guy. So, yeah, I actually feel pretty good about this. I think we did good. I it's easy for me to talk to you, so it just flowed out of me. So thank you for that, Lily.
You're welcome. For me, I can start to feel, since I have defined head ajna, I can start to feel the pressure. I've taken enough in right now.
Oh, cool. So this is a good stopping point.
Yeah, to just unconsciously, consciously digest it. And then,
Mm-hmm.
but for me, I have like what, 9-second lines just to get started in a focus
Yeah,
is,
I know.
yeah. So this foundational thing was very pleasant and very good and very necessary, and hopefully for me, it'll just
Cool.
start to piece together.
Cool. I like it too. I think I feel pretty pleased with it. In fact, maybe this could be something that I just post and then people will see what we're doing because I think this is a nice little introduction. Do you feel okay about that?
Yeah, and just
Yeah.
we request people to, if they can, leave a comment, if they're so inspired to, so
Mhm.
you can get some feedback on
Cool.
with all this amazing knowledge that you're trying to, you know, with your outer authority, make sense with. Yeah.
I was talking to someone the other day. I think this is very funny. I can't even remember who I was talking to, but I was talking about that someone had asked me, these questions that would be in a human design locational astrology handbook. And I said, well, that doesn't exist. I guess I'll have to create it. And then I was saying, yeah, I think Ra impregnated me with this when I heard those words, "Where you are is who you are." And it's like I've been pregnant by Ra ever since. That's probably such fucking heresy. Now people are like, how could she say that? But I did.
Conception.
For me, Ra is just primarily a mutative voice. I
Yeah.
just, his voice just goes into me and something happens and it's good. So, yeah. Well, thank you for this, Lily. I appreciate it a whole lot. I'm gonna stop the recording now, and yeah, I'll probably post it on YouTube and make a link.
Yeah.
Bye.